Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series called Loops. For all those who are new to our initiative, this is a live webinar focused on Age 2020 project and the research. I'm Maximilian Hege. I'm the host of today's episode, and we're speaking today to DigiCirc and researching about digital platforms. DigiCirc will be represented by Mélanie, Efstathia, and Eleni, and Marie-Thérèse will give us some insight about the resourcing project. Could you give us a short introduction of yourself? Who wants to start? Marie, maybe you?
Sure, happy to. Thank you. My name is Marie-Thérèse Kügerl. I'm from Montanuniversität Leoben, where I'm working as a researcher in the resourcing project, so really focusing on responsible sourcing of raw materials for the renewable energy sector, with focus on wind turbines and solar PV. But we'll get to that in my presentation. Thank you.
And Mélanie, maybe you?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mélanie Pellen. I am a DigiCirc project leader at Cap Digital, which is a French hub for digital and ecological transformation. We are based in Paris and in the north of France.
Okay. Eleni or Efstathia?
Yes, thank you, Maximilian. My name is Eleni Ntzioni. I am an ICT project manager at Draxis, and we are working alongside Mélanie in the DigiCirc project. Draxis creates digital solutions for environmental projects. And here in the DigiCirc project, we are responsible for the technical implementation and support of the 4 digital tools that DigiCirc project offers. And I'm here also with my colleague Efstathia, who can introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Efstathia Chatzitheodorou. I'm from Draxis also. I'm an ICT project manager here. And we're working on the DigiCirc project, where we are responsible for the technical implementation of the tools.
Nice. Before I start, I would like to point out to our audience that it's always possible to ask questions in the comments, and we will get back to them in the Q&A session, or there might be someone from the projects on the stream as well and just answering them. So DigiCirc, do you like to start your presentation?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
I think you can share my slide. Yes, great. Thank you very much. So before we dive into specificities of the 4 tools with my colleague, I will give you a short overview of the DigiCirc project. So DigiCirc is a project funded by the European Commission under the Age 2020 Industry Program. We have a budget of 5 million euros, and it is planned to last 35 months from May 2020 to March 2023. The project is run by Cap Digital and 10 partners across Europe. So as you can see here, DigiCirc Consortium covers a wide range of expertise. We have clusters, developers, business accelerator, expert in systemic design, a venture capital firm, a legal firm, and a sustainability consultant. So DigiCirc goal is to promote digital technology to make our economy more sustainable. So we target 3 domains: the circular cities, the blue economy, and the bioeconomy. And to do so, we aim to create an ecosystem of stakeholders working around the circular economy. We also manage open calls and acceleration program aiming to select European SMEs with higher potential and support them in the development of their circular and digital solutions. And finally, we develop digital tools to enable SMEs' circular economy business models. So here you have an overview of some of our achievements in the start of the project. So we build an ecosystem of almost 300 stakeholders from across Europe and from different sectors. This includes SMEs, clusters, public entities, investors, and they are all invited to contribute in our activities. And as an example, we already held 3 workshops with clusters to define open calls priorities for each sector of DigiCirc. We also, this allowed us to launch our 3 open calls, so 1 per domain. And so far, we supported a total of 66 SMEs through our 3 acceleration programs. So one of the acceleration programs is concluded, and we have 2 programs ongoing right now. As part of this program, we implemented a MOOC platform with 75 video lessons designed for the SMEs we support. This video covers topics such as business strategies, marketing, communication, intellectual property, and many other topics. And finally, we created 4 digital tools in which 261 datasets and 110 publications are publicly available. So before I leave the floor to my colleague who will give you more insight on those 4 tools, I invite you to contact us if you want to know more about our acceleration program, our activity, or the SMEs we are supporting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe you can all see my screen, right?
We can, yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm here to talk about the digital tools that Melanie just said. I'm really happy to be here with you. So these tools, we have 4 tools, and these tools are offered in order to enable and support the development of solutions in the concept of circular economy. Before we start, it's important to note that all these tools are not only for the consortia that are participating in one of our accelerators, they can be used by anyone. So here we can see the 4 digital tools that we offer. The first one is the Circular Economy Data Hub, which is basically a repository that's hosting georeferenced data that are coming from various sources. This makes it less time-consuming while searching for these specific domains. The purpose of this tool is to help with the development process of products or services by providing the data that the users can exploit for these purposes. The second digital tool that DigiCirc offers is the Industrial Symbiosis platform. What you should know about this tool is that it allows the users to investigate and interact with materials and associated processes or technologies under the scope of an industrial symbiosis environment. The third tool that we offer is the Matchmaking tool. This tool facilitates highly valuable collaborations among complementary SMEs. The goal is to develop cross-sector or cross-border consortia aiming at competing in the DigiCirc open calls or for some other intents and purposes. And finally, our last tool is the Info Portal, which is an information portal with key insights relevant to the circular economy innovation ecosystem. So now let's see the tools. Here we have the Circular Economy Data Hub, which is an interactive platform where users can find the catalog of several types of heterogeneous open datasets. These datasets are retrieved from a wide range of sources and are expanding under several different sectors. This is also the added value of the tool, that it's easier for the users to find data that could be of use all in one place. It's a really easy to use tool. It allows for accessing and manipulating geospatial data, and it also provides some visualization capabilities. There are various functionalities, such as filters and search, and they help directly produce a list of datasets based on the search input. Here on the left, we can see the welcome page with a prominent search functionality. And on the right, we can see the datasets page. At the moment, we have 261 datasets. And as you can see, they are displayed as entries in a list with a small description below them. The colors that you can see here, they indicate the available file types. And users can apply filters here on the left in order to narrow the results. On the left, we can see the 23 sectors that the Data Hub has, and they fall under the 3 pillars of DigiCirc, which are the circular cities, the blue economy, and the bioeconomy, and they can also be used as filters. On the right, we can see here the page of dataset. There is a small description always, and some metadata as additional information, such as the organization that produced the data update frequency, time span, etc. One of the most useful features of the Data Hub is the ability to visualize the content of the dataset, either as a table, as we can see on the left, or as various graphs, as we can see on the right. The functionality enables the users to preview and comprehend the data before going through the process of retrieving a dataset. The second digital tool that DigiCirc offers is the Matchmaking tool. What it does is to provide the catalog of potential collaborators, as we can see here. There are many actors registered here that can be contacted in order to form some partnerships and consortia. If you have not signed up, you can do it, as we can see on the top right. The registered users could represent the startup, a researcher, could be part of a cluster, and many more. As we can see here, filters can be applied also in order to find the actor you want to collaborate with. What's more is that partnerships can be created in terms of reusing materials. Users are able to discover who offers a resource, where they are located, and contact them directly in order to start their cooperation. At the moment, we have 140 actors from all over Europe. So when an actor is selected, they will be able to see more information about the actor. There are several links, as we can see, that are directing them to the actor's website or some other useful material that are provided by them. They can also see what are their active interests here, their experience, so they can assess the compatibility between them. Finally, there is some contact information down here that it's available to them in order to begin the communication. The third tool that DigiCirc offers is the Industrial Symbiosis platform. As we can see, it provides a knowledge graph here that acts as a material knowledge database. It connects materials with processes via graph representation. The tool provides information about material flows. In other words, how a material can be transformed to another material via a specific process or technology. As we can see here, this tool can be populated with additional material and processes, and showing also the relationships and the connections among them. This can be done only by the registered users, and you can also do this if you have signed up for the matchmaking tool. Last but not least, we have the fourth digital tool, which is the info portal. It provides access to knowledge with key insights relevant to circular economy innovation. It's an intuitive public platform which consolidates conclusions about the state of the art in the circular economy innovation ecosystem. The info portal here is filled with articles, reports, videos, infographics, and every month, it keeps on having new material. It keeps on being updated. It covers 5 topics and includes material related to technology innovations regarding circular economy, to market trends and success stories that might motivate and help the users, to investment opportunities, to some EU regulations for circular applications, as well as some generic information regarding the circular economy domain. So just to give you an idea of how this tool works, as you can see here on the left, we have some published posts of all 5 categories. And there are some filters that can be applied, such as the topic, the category, or a specific time period. On the right is the post page. The content varies based on the type of the post each time, but there's always some text, some image or video, and some additional information such as the author, the category, etc. EU. And as stated in the beginning, these tools can be used by anyone. There are no restrictions. So in case you find them interesting, feel free, of course, to try them out. If you have any questions or you want to know more about the tools, you can always...
Thank you for your insight in your project. Once again, I would like to address our audience and ask them or tell them that if they have some questions, they always allowed to ask them in the comments down below, and we will get back to them later in Q&A session. So resourcing, do you want to, or Marie, do you want to present resourcing to us?
Sure, yes. Let me just quickly try and share my screen first.
Yes.
Okay, can you see the presentation now? I think so, yeah. Great. So yeah, I very much appreciate the opportunity to present resourcing to you today. And to start with, I just quickly want to give you a quick overview of resourcing in general. Who are we? What's our goal? And what's the time frame of our project? So the resourcing project is, of course, funded by the EU via the Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program. And it started in November 2019 with a 4-year duration. As you can see, we have a rather large consortium with 12 partners coming from the EU, the UK, Switzerland, Africa, and Chile, also representing different stakeholder groups. So we really have quite a diverse set of expertise within the consortium itself that aims at providing a balanced view and a network, including all stakeholder groups that are relevant to the project. The aim is to contribute to a global definition and a global uptake of responsible sourcing of primary and secondary raw materials in 3 sectors: the renewable energy sector, the mobility sector, and the electronics and electric equipment sector. So 3 sectors that are really crucial for the EU Green Deal. The first of the 3 sectors is the renewable energy sector, which has completed its work in summer last year. And I'm going to introduce this sector and our results in more detail in a minute. The other 2 sectors are currently under development. Resourcing is a networking project, meaning stakeholder engagement plays a very central role in the project. There are various strategies we currently follow. So firstly, we provide information on the 3 sectors, on responsible sourcing, on sustainability in general, available standards, and so on. You can find this information in the Knowledge Hub on our website. And we also provide expert webinars and interviews that can then be viewed on the homepage as well. A key aspect is also the involvement of stakeholders directly in the development of project outputs. So we have extensive consultation processes for our outputs. We organize workshops, both on local and on global level. And we are also currently working on an interactive platform where we want to allow both the interaction of the visitors of our website with the content we provide and the interaction of stakeholders among each other. Here I'd actually like to mention, as I said, it's under development, so we would very much appreciate your input on that as well. What do you expect from such a platform? Do you have concrete ideas what should be included? Yeah, please feel free to send me an email or mention that in the Q&A afterwards. Now let's move on to our first sector, the renewable energy sector. Based on feedback from experts at the very beginning of the project, we focused on the supply chains of wind turbines and solar PV modules. The supply chain stages we considered in more detail are the mining of copper, rare earth elements, and quartz, the manufacturing and the recycling of the turbines and the modules. We started our work in June 2020 with an overview of the current situation in these supply chains or in the nodes of the supply chain mentioned. This overview is the so-called State of Play report, which was published in September 2020. Here we focused on currently prevailing issues and challenges for sustainability or for responsible sourcing in the sector. We also looked at available standards and sustainability initiatives, and we also defined a Vision 2050 that stands for the ultimate goal we want to achieve with our roadmap for the renewable energy sector. The start of the actual roadmap development was made with the roadmap workshop, discussing issues the roadmap needs to address and outlining a first timeline for the roadmap's milestones. The next step was the investigation of so-called flagship cases in the renewable energy sector. Those are good practice examples of industry initiatives or practices of governments that are already implemented, providing guidance for peers on how to implement similar practices themselves. So these cases were discussed in a peer learning workshop or a so-called flagship lab in April last year. And actually the flagship lab for the mobility sector is going to take place on the 1st of March. So I think you still have the possibility to register if you're interested in that. The final stage of the roadmap development was an extensive consultation process with representatives of all stakeholder groups and many different regions. All recommendations that are included in the roadmaps are based on results of the 2 workshops and especially this final consultation process. Okay, so what does the roadmap look like? Between the State of Play and the Vision 2050, we defined 5 targets. So by 2030, we want to create a level playing field and achieve social sustainability and responsible production in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. By 2040, we have set the target of responsible procurement, and achieving the Paris Agreement and environmental sustainability. You will notice this is actually more ambitious than currently planned by the EU, but according to the stakeholders who contributed to the roadmap and various scientific studies, it is in fact necessary. And last but not least, by 2050, we have the target of circular economy and decreased resource consumption. The roadmap contains concrete recommendations for policymakers, industry, and civil society. These recommendations are examples for actions on how these targets can be achieved. I'm now going to introduce the first target, the circular economy and decreased resource consumption, in more detail. So, I mean, as we all know, the energy systems are currently the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, but at the same time, access to energy is crucial for economic and for social development. And it is also embedded in the Sustainable Development Goals. The complete transition to renewable energy, however, can only be achieved by changing our consumption patterns if we want to avoid further harming the environment. So this target is all about increasing resource efficiency, increasing recycling and reuse rates to cover growing demands. We also highlight the necessity of decreasing resource consumption and moving away from the continuous growth paradigm in the long run. As pointed out by various reports, for example, by the European Environmental Bureau, absolute decoupling is not going to be possible, thus making more fundamental changes to our current economic system necessary. The milestones for achieving each target are divided into short, medium, and long term. As target 1 should be achieved by 2050, we have milestones for 2025, 2030, 2040, and 2050. The short-term milestones start with introducing concrete goals for the economy on energy consumption, implementing collection and recycling programs, implementing integrated sustainability, accounting, and reporting. With a longer time horizon, the changes necessary become more fundamental and require more intense action. So by 2030, for example, we have, of course, the achievement of the SDGs that are relevant for this target, but we also have the introduction of policies for changes of the economic system that are completed by 2050. One key takeaway from our consultations was that even though we have this long horizon until 2050, we really must act now. And this is very much reflected in the roadmap. The main actions when it comes to energy efficiency, recycling, etc., need to be implemented within the next decade. Generally, we recommend that the deadlines provided in the roadmap are really seen as just that, the absolutely last possible date by which the actions need to be implemented. But of course, we do encourage an early implementation. Okay, now let's take a look at some concrete recommendations included in the roadmap. You can see here that we not only subdivided the recommendations according to time, but also according to stakeholder group and sector addressed. A recommendation for policymakers is, for example, to introduce eco-design policies for solar PV and wind turbines. I mean, as I'm sure you know, the EU is already in the process of developing such policies for solar PV. So this is really a continuation of such efforts. One of the recommendations for mining companies is to continuously modernize their machinery and equipment to increase the electrification and to decrease the energy intensity. Apart from specific recommendations for each considered supply chain stage, we also have a very large general section with recommendations that are relevant for the entire renewable energy sector and related supply chains. Many of the recommendations included in the targets are then also explained in more detail. We provide examples of initiatives, of companies, of policymakers that have already implemented certain practices. We provide examples of certification schemes and so on. So examples that really help the implementation of the recommendations provided. The recommendations for civil society, research, and academia are not sequenced in the same way as for the other stakeholder groups, simply because we consider their role to be more overarching and supporting the achievement of all milestones. So for target 1, we ask of NGOs to increase the awareness of the public of impacts of consumption patterns and possible alternatives. Research organizations are asked to continue the development of new technologies with a focus on resource and energy efficiency. As I've already mentioned in the beginning, the roadmap is accompanied by good practice guidelines that include concrete examples of practices, our so-called flagship cases, that are already implemented in industry or policymaking, with recommendations on how these practices can be implemented in your organization. The aim is to really enable peer learning among organizations of the same stakeholder group of the same sector. Okay, so what do we think the interaction of the visitor and the content could look like? An idea would be to provide a self-assessment tool so that you can visit our homepage, take a look at the roadmap, and do a self-assessment to see at what stage in the roadmap you are and what you actually need to do to achieve the Vision 2050. And the interaction between stakeholders would be then to, for example, engage with the good practice case to get insights in their practices and see how you can implement them in your organization again. Okay, so that's it from me. Thank you very much for your attention. Happy to discuss any questions you might have. And also, please let me remind you, if you have any ideas on the interactive part of our platform or want to participate in other parts of our project, please just send me an email. You can find it here on the last slide. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, and you're really planning ahead. I mean, 2050 is a long way to go, but it's necessary, I guess. Do you have any questions to DigiCirc, or DigiCirc, do you have any questions to Marie?
Yes, Maria, I have one question. Thank you very much for your very comprehensive presentation. This is a great project, and I've seen some similarities with DigiCirc regarding so we are building an ecosystem, and it's about the same process. We make consultation with stakeholders for defining our priorities. So it's very interesting. I have one question regarding the interactive platform. Could you please give me more insight on how this platform is articulated with the roadmap you are developing? Will it support the path to achieve this roadmap, or will it? No, just if you just could provide me more information on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid I can't really say that much right now. As I've mentioned, it's still under development, but the goal really is to exactly support the implementation of the roadmap. I mean, the roadmap is a huge document for the renewable energy sector. It's a 100-page document. So it's right now, it's really difficult for our stakeholders to see what do they need to do to achieve our vision to actually implement the roadmap. So the aim really is to provide a tool that allows our stakeholders to see where are we right now, what are we good at, what are our weaknesses basically, and what do we need to do to achieve the roadmap, to achieve our vision. And if I may add on to that, because I had a question to you in this regard, you're definitely a step ahead of us when it comes to those digital tools. And I see you have a lot more experience with this, also with your matchmaking tool, actually. And as I've mentioned, this is something similar we are planning to do. So I was just wondering, what's your experience with your matchmaking tool? I mean, I'm sure you have to manage this tool actively and to help the engagement of participants. Can you maybe explain a little what this looks like, also in terms of data protection, because this is something we are thinking about, and how we can implement that actually.
Eleni, Efstathia, would you like to reply regarding the tool, and maybe I can add more about the data protection?
Yes, sure, Melanie. Thank you for the question, Marie, and for the presentation. It's actually very interesting and nice to see that there are plans for how to manage all this situation. So for the matchmaking tool, even though the implementation was developed right from the start, of course, the most important thing is to have the actors that are will populate the tool, that would register, and that are actually interested in creating some synergies and consortia to start collaborating with each other. So the most important thing after the creation of the tool was to disseminate these, to show the value to possible actors and what they could gain from this experience and this tool, and what would be the incentive for them to register and be part of this whole network that could help them move on, find more collaborators. And one of the added features is that not only you can find the contact information and create a synergy with another SME or cluster or other type of actor, but what you can do is that you can request a resource or material, or you can offer your own surplus of material, and you can use this as a basis for the whole synergy that you are going to create. This will be the incentive for you and the other actors to start on this whole communication and collaboration. So the most important aspect for us was to have these actors register, and after we had started with the ball rolling, then more people signed up, and when you have all these options of other actors who are active in domains similar to yours, then you have so many more choices on synergies and consortia. And also about the GDPR, I believe Melanie can provide some insights on that.
Yes, thank you very much, Eleni. Regarding the data protection, indeed, this was an issue we had at the start when we started to develop these tools. And we are lucky to have a legal firm in our consortium, which was very helpful, I must say. So when actors registered in the tool, we decided to ask them only, let's say, the less information as possible. Only the minimum required information. So to avoid any issue regarding GDPR and data protection. So it's just simple as that.
Thank you. It's really interesting.
We only request, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, Eleni, but email address, and I'm not even sure we have an email address. It's only name, organization, and I think that's all.
Yes, the obligatory fields to fill in are the absolute minimum, and then the actors themselves can decide if they want to provide more information, either the registration in the platform, or the contact point is there. So if they start communicating with another actor, of course, offline, they can share any information that may be useful for their synergy. I also had some thoughts about the roadmap and how the interactive platform that you are developing could help in this aspect. Well, apart from the time aspect that you saw, the different milestones and the future ahead, I noticed that you also break down the suggestions per industry or per some thematic areas. And I believe this is very important because as someone who would like to make a change, make an action, going through a huge document, a huge report with many different suggestions could be time consuming. But maybe through an interactive platform where I search for the specific industry or domain that is applicable to my actions and experience, could really motivate the users to search for this information and see what they can actually do to help towards these milestones that you have set for achievement.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good point. And this is also currently the structure on the homepage, that you can choose per sector and stakeholder group what information you would look like. And I'm pretty sure we are going to keep that because, as you said, it's just easier to find something and to see what's relevant for you.
Yeah, exactly. Making it as easier for the users as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm having a question for DigiCirc as well. I mean, we've seen in the past a lot of companies labeling themselves green or something. So that's the base of my question. Is there any protection layer within your platform? Well, actually, I think at this point you can't call it just a platform because it's just such a huge project and yeah, it's more like, in my understanding, more like a framework. So is there some sort of protection against the misuse of labeling tags like greenwashing or something built in?
I believe that you are probably referring to the matchmaking tool and how the different actors are presenting themselves as possible collaborators. There is not such a restriction in the way that you describe it, but in many cases during the registration and where the users can describe their experience and activities, we do use some predefined options so that it is easier then to make the matches between the collaborators and suggest some possible synergies. So in this aspect, they do have some options they choose from, so that it is not up to them to describe their activities and profile in broad terms that could be misconstrued or understood in a different light.
Okay. So yeah, are you planning to build something into our like and control mechanism if you experience just the misuse of such tags in your system, or do you trust then just rely on honest participants of your platform?
At the moment, it is not envisaged that way. It's not in our plans to create such a mechanism. But in any case, this tool is only the starting point of a collaboration. So I believe that even if a consortium is generated through this platform, of course, when they start communicating more and see whether their experience and interests match, it will be more obvious whether they want to continue with this collaboration or not. So this tool does not confine you in a way. I mean, it can provide suggestions, but it is not obligatory for the actors to act on them. So it is a ground for new synergies if the actors also believe that after some communication that it is to their benefit to continue with this collaboration.
Okay, thank you. Marie, I would like to ask if you have included a circular loop in your project, and if not, what do you think about the circular economy, or your opinion on it? And do you think it's if it's like needed in the mining industry, or feasible to use circular aspects?
So do you mean in the roadmap or in the content we provide, whether we consider circular economy aspects, right? Did I get that correctly? Yeah, so actually, I mean, the target for the circular economy and the decreased resource consumption is really for all of the supply chain stages that we consider in our roadmap. Of course, with the mining sector, it's a bit more difficult, certainly. But also here, we talk about, reusing the so-called bedrock, so the material you can't really use as an or for other purposes, to reuse them in the mining operations itself, so to fill up voids and things like that. So this is definitely also a point, and also to reuse the water from the processing, for example, that this is not just discharged into nature or whatever, but again, reused in the same process, and include this loop consideration here.
Okay.
I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And I have a follow-up question. I mean, you mentioned sustainability, and is there like some sort of contribution on your platform to make it more, the mining process of rare materials, more sustainable when it comes to nature and or workers?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can't go into extreme detail for each sector, for each operation, for example. But for the mining sector and for all the other sectors, we provide examples of standards that should be implemented, whether it be from the perspective of the environmental protection or from occupational health and safety. I mean, there are already so many initiatives and standards out there that provide great guidance on what you can do to improve that in your operation. And in our roadmap, we synthesize those initiatives and again provide examples on what you can do, really.
Okay, thank you. DigiCirc, I have another question. While preparing for this episode, I stumbled on your website on this process you undergone when you did the circular city call. My question now is, how did you thought about setting up a competition between some possible project stakeholders?
You mean the open call competition to select the project?
Yeah, right.
Yes, it was. So we are funded by the InnoSup program of the European Commission, which is a principle of cascade funding. So as a consortium, we receive funding, and we have a budget dedicated to SMEs. So on this basis, we decided to launch open call for each of our sectors. So the circular city, blue economy, and bioeconomy. And to prepare this open call, we gather a community, we gather stakeholders, let's say, to define a priority for each of the sectors. And based on these priorities, we define challenges that SMEs have to address in their proposal in response to our open calls. And then once the open call is closed, we have external experts who evaluate the proposal we received. And for each call, we select 15 consortia of SMEs. And then they integrate our acceleration program. I don't know if I answer your question.
Yeah, I think you did. It just I haven't seen it like open some sort of competition. The only instance I noticed it was when I watched a documentary about Bill Gates a few years ago, when he just explained how he changed some sort of the process to a competition, and from one day to another, a lot of people started to bring in their ideas because they could win something. So anyway, I have just an open question to both of your projects. What has been the biggest challenge for you to set up a digital platform?
Mélanie, do you want to start?
So maybe if it's specific to the platform, Eleni, you have some idea?
Sorry, Maximilian, I lost you for a second. Could you repeat, please?
What was the biggest challenge setting up a
Okay.
circular platform so far?
For us, I believe it was to create some requirements for the tools without having a group of users to directly talk to. So how we managed that was to create some development reference groups, gather some inputs from various stakeholders and stakeholders from clusters that are active in the DigiCirc project, and then ask them what they would like to see in such tools in order to have them ready for the beneficiaries of the accelerator when they would be in turn active in the project. So we had to create the tools for the users before the users were actually found. So this was a difficult thing to master, but by consulting relevant stakeholders from this domain, we managed to have some tools that are actually used by the beneficiaries and provide added value to them.
Thank you for your answer.
Yeah, I think from our side, I mean, not having finished our platform yet, but so far, exactly what I've mentioned before. First of all, the data protection issue, how can we implement that? And secondly, how can we break down our content that it's most valuable and most usable for our stakeholders?
Okay. Yeah. I think it's just a process, and you'll get there and find solutions. So anyway, when it comes to digitalization of the sustainability sector and building platforms, how do you think it's driving sustainability forward, or does it actually bring some change in terms of sustainability?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah,
Sorry.
for all of you. Sorry.
Well, I think there are two sides to that, right? I mean, just considering the mining operations, again, digitalization can bring both opportunities and issues, because it might, you might lose jobs in remote areas where mining currently takes place. On the one hand, on the other hand, you might make the jobs more safe or safer for the workers, as they don't have to be in dangerous environments anymore. So yeah, we'll see how it works out, but I think there are two sides to digitalization.
Yeah.
Well, for our side, I believe that it's all about engaging users and people who are even remotely interested in these domains, and have even just a small idea of what can be done in these sectors. So by providing them with easier access to all this information and providing them with some tools to help them develop something on their own, we enhance their activities, and we help them be more active in these domains as well through digital tools.
Yeah. Thank you. I think if you don't have another question to the other project, or like I noticed we have no new questions from our audience as well. I would like to thank you for your presentation and questions, and for this really nice talk. And I would like to wrap this episode up if you have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for this opportunity.
Thank you.